having this this weird thing. You guys seen that YouTube clip? It was going around. It's been a while back now, where it's something called. I'm not going to get all the details right, but it's something like a perception test. How well are you able to pay attention? And on the screen, there's a bunch of kids, and they're all playing, and I can't remember exactly what they're doing. And you're supposed to count how many times something happens. So you're kind of watching around, and you're counting all these things and all that stuff. And at the end of the clip, and remember, this test is called a perception test. The guy will come back on, and he says, all right, did you get the count of how many things you're supposed to count? And, you do or you don't. And then he says, did you see Bigfoot walk through the screen? And you're like, whatever. And they go back and show it. Sure enough, right through the middle of the screen of all the stuff going on, Bigfoot, 9 foot tall, hairy and ugly, walks right through there. And you're going, how on earth did I miss that on a screen that's only this big? And the reason is because they did this on purpose. They drew your attention away to get you off on something else. That's how I feel today. Anybody else have an aggravating week? Frustration? Anybody? Talk to me here. Come on, because you're going to have to help me today. Frustrating week? Yes. Many of you walked through a road that was a little more uphill than you would have liked, and I did too. I had some things happen this week that just got on my nerves. But you know what? Let's not pay attention to that and miss Bigfoot walking through here, okay? I mean, I was going to make that story pay off one way or another. But the idea is, friends, we have something important to do here today. And you know what? I always shoot straight with you, and I'm going to here today. This sermon today is not as good as the one from last week. It just isn't. They can't all be winners. But the idea is God does have something to say. And something he wants to share with you, and I'm going to do the best I can to work my way through this to get it from my mouth to your ears. So I'm going to need you to work with me along the way, okay? So our scripture passage for today is going to come to us from the book of Psalms, Psalm 49, verses 16 to 20. So don't be dismayed when the wicked grow rich and their homes become ever more splendid. For when they die, they take nothing with them. Their wealth will not follow them into the grave. In this life, they consider themselves fortunate and are applauded for their success. But they will die like all before them and never again see the light of day. People who boast of their wealth don't understand they will die just like animals. Here ends the reading. That's our positive and uplifting thought for the day right there. Okay, so for the sermon today, I want to broaden your horizons by teaching you a new word. Now, as you all well know, words are very important. And I know you would expect me to say that because my whole life is all about words, right? Writing sermons, writing newspaper articles, writing stuff for the website. I spend a lot of time working with words. Words have power. As our politically correct culture will remind you every chance it gets, words can be dangerous. Words can even be violent, or so they say. But choosing the words that we say carefully, that is very important because words do have meaning. Words have meaning when I say them. Words also have meaning when you hear them. Because communication has not successfully taken place until you hear what I mean. That's why communication is actually cooperation. We have to work with each other in order for you to hear what I want to say. Again, this is my life. I spent all week working up for this. There are two reasons why, and I know some of you have expressed concern about this, two reasons why I write my sermons out on this device. The first and most obvious reason is I have to do this sermon twice. Do you have any idea how completely impossible it would be for me to preach the same sermon twice if I'm just going off the top of my head? Now, if we only had one service, I wouldn't need to write everything out like this because I could stand up here and preach one sermon with very few notes. But the fact that I then have to turn around and recreate this twice means it needs to be close enough so that if any of you folks from Awaken speak to the people in First Light, you're not going to be going, gosh, did we hear the same sermon? Because you wouldn't have heard the same sermon. And friends, I am absolutely committed to Wayne Street being one church with two services rather than being two congregations who share a roof. That's wrong. So keeping sermons consistent is one small way I can facilitate Wayne Street being one congregation. Now, power of words. That's our focus for the day. And if any of you want to know the power of words, all you have to do is go turn on any cable news network. Doesn't matter which one. But if you want to laugh at it, go pick a current event in our world. Again, doesn't matter what current event you want to pick out. Pick any current event, click on YouTube, and go watch CNN and MSNBC cover it, and then click over and watch Fox News cover the same event. Friends, how can you take the same series of facts and make them sound that different? That's the power of words. If you look at something that happened and you call it a debacle, it completely gives away your opinion. Because if you take the same event and describe it as a victory, you're clearly on the other side. That's the power of words. That's why the media in Kansas City used way different words to describe the Super Bowl than the media in San Francisco did. Because words matter. Now, in these last 2 weeks of the Choose Your Own Adventure sermon series, we're going to be looking at two passages from the book of Psalms. We're going to psalm reading today. We're going to read another psalm next week. I almost never preach from the book of Psalms because the book of Psalms is basically a bunch of song lyrics. Psalms is a collection of ancient hymns and ancient poems. Now, if you pick up a book of poems and you compare that to any history book, you'll find the content of those two books to be very different. And I don't think it's a shock for me to say, I love the history books, especially the history books in the Bible. That's my bias. I enjoy those books more because I get to get in there and tear those stories apart to see what we can learn from them. I got an immense amount of feedback from the sermon last week. Mostly, I'd never heard that passage before, and any of you who were here knew it was kind of a weird one. You know, we learned about the Nephilites. But it was very much a historical context sermon. And those are the ones I love writing and I love preaching them because that plays to my strengths. For that very same reason, I don't often preach from the book of Psalms, is because when I preach on Psalms, I have to spend the first 5 minutes of the sermon talking about how we use words. Man, that's boring, right? And I'm sure this is going to absolutely shock you to learn this about me, but I am not the world's most emotional person, okay? Feelings are not my strong suit. It has been my experience that anytime you have strong feelings about something, all you have done is started the countdown timer until whatever it is you have these strong feelings about lets you down. It's kind of how it works. So feelings are clearly a growing edge for me. And that's why I don't like the Psalms. It's because that's what they are. It's a bunch of feelings. God put Psalms in the Bible for people like me. Because God created emotion, God created feelings, and they're good no matter how bad the experiences are we've had with them. And again, even God feels emotions. And thank God he does. I mean, what is the Bible's most famous verse? The first 4 words of that verse are, "For God so loved." And that verse ends by telling us what it is God did about these feelings he had. So feelings are important. And Psalms, as you know, is the single longest book of the Bible. And not only is it the longest book of the Bible, it's also literally located right in the center of the Bible. So we have 150 hymns, songs, poems, and other writings expressing every emotion in the great variety of all human emotions. All the good ones, all the bad ones, they're all here somewhere. And the emotions of the psalm writers was so important to God that he directed that their writings be put right smack dab in the middle of his book. Why? Because emotions and the words we use to describe those emotions, it all matters. So, in light of all of that, I want to give you a new word today. And the word I want to teach you today is the word dismay. Now, your challenge is going to be, one of 2 challenges I'm going to give you. The first one is to use this word in a sentence today, but you have to use it correctly. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is this word dismayed. The literal Hebrew word here is fear. Dismay is how the English translators translated the Hebrew word for fear. But this kind of fear we're talking about here is not the kind of fear you have like walking through a haunted house or public speaking or spiders, things like that. That's not the kind of fear we're talking about here. This kind of fear is the kind of fear that you have when somebody threatens you. It's the fight or flight kind of fear. So if I threatened you, or if I was acting menacing, or I backed you into a corner and tried to scare you, this is the kind of fear you would experience. This is the kind of fear that will cause you to lash out, to attack, or to run. This is the kind of fear that always prompts a response. Now, all of you have been in a situation at some point in your life where you have felt this kind of fear, the fear that causes you to act. Something happened, made you angry, made you feel like you weren't being treated fairly. This feeling is the kind of feeling, and you all know what it feels like. It comes out of your stomach. It feels like you're going to spit a fireball out your mouth. This is the kind of fear we're talking about. All of you have experienced that kind of anger. You've been there. So answer me this. In response to this specific kind of feeling we're talking about here, the feeling you have when you're being threatened, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how would you rate the kind of decisions that you make in response to this feeling? Good or bad? Anybody willing to rate it as high as 3? Probably not. Clearly, we are not in our best decision-making state of mind when we have a fear fire burning in our bellies. This is not us at our best. There are all kinds of things that can make us have this kind of fear in our bellies, but when we got it, decision-making is not our strong point. That's how I am defining the word dismayed. I'm defining dismayed as the fear fire burning in your belly. You experience something that makes that fear fire starts to burn. Again, not talking about trying to digest spicy food. That's a different kind of belly fire, okay? This is that spurt of anger we get when something happens that threatens us or causes us to have a dramatic and intense reaction. That's what it means to be dismayed. And I think we all would agree, we don't normally do our best decision-making when we are in a state of dismay. So, my question is now, is it ever okay to feel this way? Is it ever okay to feel dismayed? Now, I fully embrace the fact that we can't help it. It's a response. I mean, it just happens. I get it. But is the feeling ever okay? And I can't stand up here and say, well, you should never feel this again. You should never feel dismayed. That's not going to happen because you can't help it. The only way that you can avoid ever having the experience of being dismayed is for me to advocate giving up all feelings and emotions, and even I can't advocate that as a good idea. So God gave us the ability to be dismayed for a reason. There has to be a reason for it. We all have the ability to experience this extreme emotion for some reason. However, we also all have agreed that there are times that we don't make our best decisions when we are experiencing this. So that means we need some parameters. We need some boundaries. We need some rules on being dismayed in order to protect us from this raw emotion. Because even the most emotional person amongst us here today is going to have to admit that living your life based on your feelings is also a terrible choice. We don't all have to be cyborgs, but we can't be emotional wrecks either. Neither one is good, somewhere in the middle. So that means we're going to need some rules. Some rules we're going to have to adhere to keep our dismayed emotions in check. And that leads me to the passage for today. The writer of this psalm is warning us about a moment in life when we want to be very, very careful about our feelings of dismay. The writer of Psalm 49 talks about feeling dismayed when you're looking at somebody else's wealth, when you're looking at somebody else's success, something that somebody else has, something they possess, something. When you start to feel dismay in that circumstance, it can become crippling. Because what you're doing is you're looking at what somebody else has, and that's what I want. The boundary we are encouraged to set here is we need to be very, very, very careful when jealousy causes dismay. Dismay that is inspired by jealousy is always bad. And the reason why jealousy is one of the 7 deadly sins is for this very reason. When jealousy causes dismay, it is always destructive. Now, the writer of Psalm 49 is warning us of jealousy-inspired dismay because that's so easy to do, and it can take over your whole life. Take it from someone who has officiated at lots of funerals. I have seen families who have had this intense hatred for each other over something that no one can even articulate what it is. But somewhere along the way, there was a perception that someone got something that somebody else deserved, and all the relationships were destroyed by that. That kind of bitterness, that kind of hostility, that kind of jealousy-inspired dismay can create one of the saddest illnesses a person can have. Yes, it is an illness. And I call it an illness because untreated, it will do nothing but get worse. Look, friends, let me level with you. Sometimes life is not fair. It simply isn't. That's the brutal reality of the world we live in. I don't care how many advocacy groups you create. I don't care how many government programs there are. Life is still not going to be fair. You will always be able to find somebody who's ahead of you who doesn't deserve to be there. You're always going to have that. Never going to change. And that's the warning of today's sermon. Be very careful about how you become dismayed. Is that fire in your belly, an emotion that you can't always help, is it always bad? Look, I'll admit it's probably not the best backdrop to make decisions upon, but on the other hand, God gave us the ability to feel dismayed for a reason. And after sitting with this idea this week, I gotta say, if you use it properly, being dismayed can actually be a positive thing if you do it right. That fire in your belly can be a great motivator. I do not believe that by itself, being motivated, that's not always a bad thing. In fact, I believe it to be a very good thing. In fact, there's a lot of people out there who could probably use a little more of it in their lives to get them out and moving. That fire in our belly is what motivates us to make changes. Look, here's a silly example. If you are dismayed when you stand on the bathroom scale, you're not going to do anything until that dismay grows big enough to motivate you. If I look at my community and I see something that dismays me, something I don't like, that could motivate me to get out there and make a positive change. For myself, it's the fire I have in my belly that gets me involved in so much stuff around the community. You've done it too. You see your friend who's struggling, you see a neighbor who needs a helping hand, and you become dismayed about that to the point that it causes something good to happen. That's why God gave you the ability to become dismayed. So that when you see something that is not how it should be, you'll be motivated to go fix it. The Holy Spirit can even use our feelings of being dismayed to push us out of our comfort zone and cause us to grow. You can say, look, I'm not satisfied with where I am in my faith. I'm not satisfied in my relationships. I'm not satisfied in my current circumstances. I'm not satisfied with whatever. And when that level of dismay gets high enough, it'll cause you to make a positive change and make things better. Now, friends, I believe that the writer of Psalm 49 agrees with me on this point. However, he also believes that as much as being dismayed can have a positive effect, can do positive things in our world, being dismayed can also be twisted and made to become destructive. And that's why the writer of Psalm 49 wants us to check our dismay with one very important test. As positive and constructive as being dismayed can be, when you mix dismay with jealousy, it becomes poisonous. This is the crucial mistake that is so often made. When we turn all of our dismay inward, and that's when dismay mixes with jealousy, and the result is always greed, another one of the 7 deadly sins. That's why these poor people who work in customer service, they got to deal with a job that's awful because they're dealing with people who are offended and angry because of who knows what little thing happened. Those people are calling in to complain, and because they have turned their dismay into greed by mixing it with jealousy. They believe they are entitled to everything in their world being perfect, and they'll throw a fit until they get their way. This is the poisonous result of mixing dismay with jealousy. Now, this is what the writer of Psalm 49 is talking about. When looking at what other people have, when that causes you dismay, why do they have that car? Why do they have that marriage? Why do they have that house? Why do they have that job? Why do they have that whatever? What you're doing is you're allowing your God-given gift of feeling dismayed, you're allowing it to be corrupted and turned against you. Nothing, and I mean nothing positive, comes out of mixing dismay with jealousy. Now, it may cause other people to change, but the change that other people will be doing will simply be to pacify you and to satisfy your greed. FYI, other people changing don't make you grow. Just want to be clear about that. See, God designed dismay to be a motivation for self-improvement. But like so many things in our world, the devil corrupted it. So he turned dismay into a jealousy, into a weapon to use against us by mixing it with jealousy. Dismay now makes all of us feel like we are entitled to stuff. And that is because we find it so easy to mix dismay and jealousy together. And it fills our lives with greed. Friends, so many good things in our world that we have today are here because somebody looked at a situation and felt extreme dismay about it. It wasn't much more than 150 years ago that doctors realized that washing their hands between surgeries made the patient more likely to survive. Look where we are today. Look what we can do. That is because brave women and men looked at situations and they felt extreme dismay about them. Children dying of cancer, I feel a lot of dismay about that. People who have knees they can't walk on, dismay. People who have other physical problems and illnesses and injuries and all these things, people looked at that and said, you know, I will not accept that. That lit a fire in their belly and caused them to make a change. That dismay made them decide that the way things are, I'm not accepting that any longer. And their dismay led them to change the world. And friends, there is really no way to know how many lives have been saved because somebody looked at something and felt a lot of dismay about what they saw. All of us have made positive changes in our lives at one point or another because we were dismayed about where we were. You know, college degrees, promotions at work, better physical condition, all of these things and a whole bunch more are a product of feeling the right kind of dismay. Feelings of dismay are too powerful and they are too important for us to allow dismay to become a tool of the enemy to use against not only ourselves, but use against the people around us. That's why we have to be very careful about what we do with our dismay. Never, ever under any circumstances should you allow jealousy to mix with your dismay, or else something bad is going to happen every time. My friends, I have a double challenge for you today. The first one I already said, I kind of let this one out. First is, I want you to use the word dismayed in a sentence, somewhere along the way, all right, as a part of this double challenge. Use the word dismayed in a sentence. Use it sometime between now and the end of the day. That's the first challenge, and I already said it. Here's the second challenge. And this is a challenge that going to go on for the rest of your life. The next time you begin to feel dismayed about something, sometimes you got a fire that burns in your belly and you feel like you're going to spit out a fireball because you're so mad about something, I challenge you. In fact, I double dog dare you. Can't turn out a double dog dare unless you're a chicken. Ask yourself this question. Is there jealousy in my dismay? Is there jealousy mixing with this? Is there jealousy fueling it? Is there jealousy causing it? Am I angry because somebody's got something I don't have? Somebody else has something that I want? Is that what's causing the dismay? Is that what's causing me to want to have to change things? Because if it is, you're changing things for the worse. The question you need to ask is God putting that dismay in you? And if he is, there'll be no jealousy in it. The whole point of this sermon, based on Psalm 49, is about the danger of dismay mixed with jealousy. Dismay is truly, by itself, dismay is a gift from God. And as your pastor, I don't want that gift stolen from you. I don't want that gift corrupted by the devil's jealousy. Feelings of dismay can do so many good things if, and that's a big if, do so many good things if you'll protect it. Dismay can be a gift from God if you are willing to keep the devil's jealousy away from you. My friends, as you go forward from this place, again, knowing that feeling dismayed is something you can't avoid, my question to you is, can you keep your dismay free of jealousy? Because if you can, it can truly be a gift from God. So go forward, make your life better by protecting your dismay. In Jesus' name, amen.